Welcome to the latest Silicon Valley Vibes, a podcast from SVLG. I'm your AI announcer, VJ, bringing you the latest on the people, platforms, and places of the one-of-a-kind ecosystem of Silicon Valley. On this episode of SVV, we welcome Cynthia Tregillis, Chief Legal Officer for Western Digital. She oversees the Fortune 200 company's legal, risk management, compliance, and government relations functions. And she recently won 2025 General Counsel of the Year at Law.com's Women, Influence, and Power in Law Awards. Cynthia talks with us about her own career path, about her leadership takeaways, and she talks about the positive challenges of adapting to opportunities in the era of AI. Bringing you into that conversation is our podcast's new host and Silicon Valley Leadership Group CEO, Ahmad Thomas. Ahmad, welcome to the host chair. Let's go.
Cynthia, it's wonderful to see you. You've been an incredible friend of Silicon Valley Leadership Group. You're a trailblazer here in Silicon Valley, and I want to personally, again, welcome you.
Thank you so much, Ahmad. It's been a pleasure being a member of SVLG and part of the board, and I enjoy working with you personally. So thank you for asking me to join you.
Well, you're very kind, Cynthia, and we'll dive right in to talk about this trailblazer journey that you have had, right? Going from white shoe law firms to being a corporate C-suite executive. Tell us a little bit about how you got there, some of the pivotal moments in your career trajectory.
So as you said, I started out as a judicial law clerk in Washington, D.C. in the D.C. Superior Court. And from there, I went to New York and New Jersey. And I practiced there. I also practiced in Washington, D.C. and then made my way back to California. I was in Los Angeles practicing IP litigation, so primarily trademark and patent litigation, trade secret litigation. And I got to a point in my career where I felt like I wanted to do something different. And I got an opportunity to join Western Digital in 2012. And that was the beginning of my in-house career, working for Western Digital. And I joined in 2012. I started the trademark and brand protection group for Western Digital. And over the years, I've grown my role, I've changed roles, and then now I'm the chief legal officer.
Well, as the chief legal officer for a company, one of our largest employers in San Jose, and certainly as we shared, one of the most influential companies that I think people should know more about, but don't in Western Digital. That chief legal officer role, I am curious about how you approach innovation, right? The rapid change that we're seeing undergoing in the innovation economy in our ecosystem with AI in particular. But for you as a chief legal officer, how do you manage the pace of innovation and how do you position Western Digital from your role as chief legal officer?
Well, it starts with my team. I could not do my job without my team. Fantastic group under me. And over the years, we've just been able and fortunate to hire some quality talent. And so they really help keep us up with the pace of innovation. I think the company as a whole is at a crossroads. We are seeing an incredible growth in our industry, because of the growth of AI. All of the technology changes are requiring us to pivot and make sure that we're able to address the issues that come up quickly, make sure that we're up to speed on all of the regulations that are being implemented across the world. It's put a lot of pressure on our team to make sure that we're able to stay ahead of things. But we're really looking at things like AI to help us keep ahead.
Well, I want to ask a follow up, Cynthia, around culture and your team culture. One thing that has struck me getting to know you and working with you, I think there are often impressions of lawyers, especially lawyers, coming from these white shoe firms. And for you, you move very quickly. Change is a constant, and you've created a team and a culture where adapting to innovation and technology is second nature. And again, I don't know if some of these stereotypes are relevant or not for traditional, legal profession folks. But how have you created a culture that's so iterative, so, I would say focused on leaning into innovation?
It's a it's a really good point, Ahmad. Lawyers, well, people, I think generally, don't.
Yeah, we won't pick on all the lawyers listening.
Right. I mean, people like certainty, right? And lawyers certainly like certainty. Working for a company, I think, makes it a little bit more imperative for us to be sure that we are able to adjust more quickly. I think that if you're not comfortable with change, you have to get used to it. And that is some advice that I got a couple years after I joined. There was just change after change after change that was occurring. It was uncomfortable for me, and I realized that I had to either get comfortable with change, and try to work with others to get comfortable with change, or I had to pivot away from working for Western Digital. I think that change is good, and I've seen the opportunities that come with change. I try to instill that in the team. As you know, we went through a massive change earlier this year in February. We separated our company, Western Digital, into two separate companies. So we have Western Digital and SanDisk. And that was a huge change for the team. It was a huge change for the company. So being in the middle of that and trying to navigate that, make sure that the team stayed comfortable, was very important for me and the team.
You've always been a very clear and transparent communicator, which I think is a big part of bringing team members along. But is there any other advice that you would give from your experience being able to do this successfully with two very large, impactful entities here in the Valley?
The thing that is most important, in my opinion, especially as you're leading through change, is to lead with empathy.
Mhm.
As I said, we recognize that as humans, we don't like change, but people have different levels of tolerance for it. And some people embrace change and some people resist change. And you have to figure out where your team is on that spectrum and then try to work with them to try to bring out the very best in them, to get them comfortable with what is going on.
Well, that's very well put. And I think your note about leading with empathy, especially in this time where there's a lot of uncertainty, very good uncertainty in terms of innovation, but sometimes uncertainty about business decisions. Maybe pivoting, shifting gears a little bit to go back to your role as chief legal officer and thinking about brand management. It is a unique time that we're living in politically, socially. We've spoken about our innovation economy and the pace at which things are moving. I would love to hear more from you, Cynthia, about your role as chief legal officer of those key functions and how you're managing brand and reputation in this time.
The belief that I have and have always had is that every employee of a company is a brand ambassador. And so we're all individually responsible for representing the company in the best way possible. There are varying degrees of that, obviously. Not everybody is speaking on behalf of the company. But what you hope to achieve is to have that common culture and set of values that allow employees to embrace it. And then you are speaking and acting in a common way.
Well, looking at your messaging, another, I think, core component, which in my view speaks to culture, is the continued focus you have had as a C suite leader, but also Western Digital, on really cultivating pipelines of talent that are inclusive, right? You have your Female Investors Initiative as just one example that I want to make sure and highlight here. But again, a focus on making Silicon Valley as competitive as possible, making Western Digital as competitive as possible. We've spoken about this in terms of your recruiting and again, finding talent sometimes in places where folks don't believe it traditionally exists. Can you speak to that? And again, that core set of values and culture.
Yeah, it's one of the things that I really like about the company is the fact that we're very supportive of our employees and all employees. We have employee resource groups, anywhere from our We Salute group, which is for military veterans. We've got our women's group. We have our We Elevate group, which I'm the executive sponsor for the Black Professionals Network. We also have our Latino group. And in terms of recruiting, we try to look across the country, across the world, even if possible. I think that the challenge is, of course, we do work in highly competitive space, not just in Silicon Valley, but we also have location in Southern California, in Colorado, Minnesota. And so one of the other things that we do is we have an internship program, we have new college grad program. All of that is to try to get new talent, and to try to recruit from other areas.
Well, it's a strategy that's very important now in an ultra competitive global environment, especially as we talk about the innovation ecosystem here in Silicon Valley. And, I have to ask, I'm from a military family. I see the flag behind you understand how powerful that is, and I know what that means because I was also struck by one of the first things you mentioned in talking about having an approach of bringing all employees into what you do at Western Digital. You mentioned specific work for military and military veterans.
The military is very important to me. My father was in the military and he passed away many years ago. That's his flag. And I think that growing up with him serving caused me to have an appreciation for the armed services. I mean, quite honestly, every time I hear the national anthem, I get a little bit choked up.
Yeah.
A little bit weird, but I that's just how it is for me. It's we were raised, my brother, my sister, and I were raised to honor the flag, honor the country, and and that's just been instilled in us from the beginning. We spent a lot of time on military bases, military hospitals. I think my brother said once that he was like 12 years old before he realized that not everybody stands before you watch a movie because we used to go see
Oh,
movies
interesting.
on bases and they always
Right.
played the national anthem first. It is something that is incredibly important to me personally, and not just in the military, but also first responders as well. I just think the world of them. I think that they have a really hard job. I think they're sometimes in very difficult positions, and I just think, I'm very grateful that they have protected us and given us the freedoms that we currently have today.
Well, it's so beautifully put, Cynthia, and clearly you've honored your father's legacy so well. And when you talk about bringing those values to Western Digital, it makes all the difference in the world. And I'm struck when you talk about this with the shared experience I have with you, coming from a military family, how I think, unfortunately, so many Americans don't get to see how real that sacrifice is for those families and what the carry on effects are. Frankly, I grew up in a military community, to communities. So again, I really appreciate the way you share that, and hopefully for our audience that resonates. And I want to build on that point. Talking about role models in your life, there's a theme that I'm picking up here where you have been permeable. You have not approached this with a fixed mindset. The success that you've had really does appear to be due to you willing to change and learn and develop new skill sets and have a set of values that has remained consistent. The question is two-part. One, the role models in your life and the lessons that you've taken from them. Your dad clearly, I'm sure, is on that list. But also for our audience, how you are a good role model to those that you now mentor.
I've been very, very fortunate over the years to have mentors, but also sponsors. You and
Can you
I,
talk about the difference,
yeah,
Cynthia, for the
we
audience? I think that's
about
important.
this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do think it's important that for people to recognize that there is a difference. So mentors are people with whom you can have real conversations. And they're honest with you. They tell you things that you sometimes don't want to hear, but that you need to hear. Sponsors, and they can be the same person, but sponsors are really those people who can help you get to that next level. And sometimes it involves giving you that honest feedback. Very often it does. But sponsors also help you get positioned into the right place in the right time and open up opportunities for you. And I've been fortunate to have people like that in my life. And I'm in the job that I currently have because people have done that for me. The last general counsel for Western Digital, Michael Ray, was just an incredible role model for me. And he set me up to have this role. He gave me the opportunities I needed to be positioned, to learn the business, to learn the different areas of the legal department, the ability to work with the board, our fantastic board. And it's just been a wonderful opportunity, but I do credit him for giving me those opportunities. And I've used that as kind of a role model for myself. I try to, as a leader, give people opportunities. And sometimes people are comfortable with where they are, and that's totally fine. Other times people want to grow, they wanna have different experiences, and I try to look for those opportunities. You're somewhat limited in a legal department, for a company because there are only so many jobs and there are only so
Right.
many opportunities, but where we can find those opportunities, we try to do that, and Sometimes that means simply shifting people's job responsibilities or moving them from to support one group versus another group or geographically. I think it is all about opportunities, but it's also there is a responsibility on the individual. That individual has to figure out what is your 3-year plan? What is your 5-year plan? What is your ultimate goal? And sometimes when you're a new college grad or a new law grad, you don't know what it is. You just want to learn, and that's fine. But if you're, 5, 7, 9 years into your career, you should figure out what is it that you want to do at the end of the day and then work backwards. What are the skills that you need to develop to get to that end goal? And once you have that, then you can try to work with your manager to figure out if you can get there. And it may be that it's not at the current company.
Mm.
That's what Michael always said. We need to train people so that they're able to grow in the job at Western Digital or move on to another opportunity. I do agree with that philosophy. I think that is our obligation is to make sure that we are training people and developing them in the best possible way so that they can succeed either with us or with another company.
So you're talking about a two-way street, really, in terms of your culture. One where it's obvious, your team is working hard to deliver value for Western Digital, but it sounds like you're communicating very clearly that we want to build you up, right? And if you're looking for opportunities, we hope that it's for you here. But if not, again, we're trying to uplift you. I think, Cynthia, that's probably not as commonplace as you might imagine it to be, unfortunately.
I think that's right. I've talked to some people where they're not as fortunate as I have been, and hopefully that I've cultivated that at within our legal department, and I've tried to build on what Michael started. And part of it too is we have about 100 attorneys now, or 100 attorneys and professionals. We're small relative to some of the larger companies in the valley. At larger companies, it's a little bit more challenging, I think, at some to move up, or to move across. But other companies really thrive on that. I mean, I will give you as an example, I know Amazon is very good at that. They have historically been really good at moving people around and giving them new opportunities. And I think that's fantastic. I think that just embracing the opportunities that you can get at a company that is willing to move you around, or to, give you different opportunities, maybe outside of legal, I think that's something to look for.
Well, it's well put, but again, it goes back to our original question and point about how you've been prepared from the start for opportunities. For someone getting to your level, being in the right place at the right time, some might call it luck, but factors into that. But you also have to be prepared and
Yes.
prepared for those opportunities when they arise. So again, I'd love to just hear from you about that, teasing out some of your experiences about how you have been prepared for the moment that ultimately has brought you to the C-suite here at Western Digital.
I think that is very kind of you. I honestly have not always been prepared. Um, in the sense that there are times when you get thrust into a situation and you have to just figure it out,
Mhm.
right? And that's another characteristic that I think is helpful to have when you're in-house or just in life, frankly, is to be resilient and to be flexible. I always believe there's a solution to a problem. Now, it's not always a solution I like, but there's a solution. And sometimes you have to just accept that the solution that you're going to get is not one that you like. It helps you to resolve the issue. You just have to get comfortable with that. We're at a company with 41,000 people. And one of the things that I love about this company is the fact that we do embrace different perspectives and brainstorming across the organization. And that's valuable to a company, not being siloed and to reach out to other groups and to have that comfort level, to be able to get those other viewpoints.
Well, Cynthia, I want to bring this back to Silicon Valley Leadership Group, but really talking about our region, the innovation economy, and competitiveness here for Silicon Valley. We're very fortunate to have you on our board, and I hope for the audience they've got a sense from you about how engaged you are in actually moving the innovation economy forward in terms of your leadership at Western Digital. But what are those issues for us in Silicon Valley that are top of mind for you, thinking about how we keep our region the most competitive, most innovative region on the planet?
One of the challenges we have, Ahmad, and it's important for the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, is the cost of living. It's expensive to live in the Bay Area. Housing is expensive. Just life is expensive. I do think that's an important issue for the Valley to deal with. There's no easy solution to it, unfortunately, and we need to come up with ways to make it easier for people to live here. In some cases, you have a lot of talent who want to come here and they want to work, but they can't necessarily afford it. And I think some companies are in the process of doing centers of excellence in other regions, but that doesn't help the valley itself. And so if we want to continue to have that talent, we're going to have to figure out how to deal with the cost of living here.
It's a huge issue, as you know, and we're grateful you've been very engaged around our Future Forward agenda, really trying to drive innovative solutions, right? That's a theme of our conversation today to problems that do not need to be intractable, especially when we look at the talent and the resources that we have here in the Valley and the greater Bay Area. But with that, Cynthia, I've got a few fun lightning round questions for our audience. Career advice. What's the best piece of career advice that you've ever received?
Do the things that you say you're going to do. Relatedly, your word is your bond. It was one of the things when I got sworn in as attorney, one of the judges actually said that. He said it takes, a very long time to build up your reputation and to get people to understand that you're reliable. It takes 10 seconds to destroy that.
Emerging or frontier technology that you're most excited about?
Oh, well, AI. Lawyers, so I have to be honest, there are a lot of things that scare me about AI, from a legal perspective, and there are many issues there, privacy, data integrity, things like that. But the opportunities that AI give us to uplift our workforce, that's the thing that I think is most promising, is reskill them, retrain them, and that to me is going to make jobs more interesting, and less tedious.
Well, Cynthia, we'll close on a fun note here. Is there a particular meal or a restaurant, or what would you share with the audience?
I love pizza. I mean, I could eat pizza every day. It's not a fancy dish by any means, but New York style pizza, hands down.
Well, on that fun note, Cynthia, I want to say thank you. I want to thank you personally for your partnership with Silicon Valley Leadership Group. I want to thank Western Digital for their commitment to our region. And I want to give you the last word here again, expressing gratitude for the time with us today.
Well, I want to thank you, Ahmad. I greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you for all of the hard work that Silicon Valley Leadership Group does every day. You have built an amazing, amazing team. And, I've had the opportunity to meet some of the newer people. I'm just very excited about the future for Silicon Valley Leadership Group, and I look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
And that finishes up Ahmad Thomas's first episode of SVV in the host chair. Nicely done, Ahmad. Thanks again to Cynthia Tregillis and her entire team for making this happen today, and also for a great convo on what it means to be a leader at this time in tech. Shoutouts to R.R. Robbins for producing this episode. Thanks for the production tools at Runway, 11 Labs, and Suno. Please like, share, and subscribe to keep up to date on what's coming next for Silicon Valley. But for now, this is VJ signing off from Silicon Valley, where intelligence can be artificial, but curiosity is always human. See you next time.